And the business of fashion is quite tricky. There's no business like this anywhere else in the world. We basically make products out of our minds, use raw materials, and only with our creativity alone, we make things that actually have value. But those things need to find a customer. People need to know about them. There's so many different factors before you can sell a product. And it's very, very tricky. And I know a lot of designers have been trying to find a market for what they do. And this needs to start very early in the creation process. I always ask graduates, do you know anyone that has an item that you have already made? Is there anyone in your family, in your circle of friends, who's bought something that you have made? That is an important question because that tells you if your product has got a market. But at the same time, if you're in a very small community that might not have the same taste as what you're creating, it might give you a false message. So you need to get a wide enough appreciation of what you do as a product. Because as designers, we are actually product designers. Our products just happen to be clothes. And it's important to find the people who resonate with that product. And that goes in terms of our marketing, in terms of our research into our product design. Because as a designer, you need to ask yourself two things. If you want to be in this business, either one, you're going to create a desire for your product, which is very difficult because you're designing from scratch. You're creating a new thing that will make people want it. Or two, we need to service an existing need, which is also very, very valid because there's a lot of markets that have big holes in them. Whether it's in Botswana, whether it's in Zambia, whether it's in South Africa, where you look around and you realize, hey, there aren't enough different colored suits for men. It's only black and blue. And nobody is creating different colors for different occasions. Why don't I do that? You'd be filling a need, and that's where you go into. Or if you realize that there aren't any avant-garde designers, then you create something from scratch, create a universe, and then that attracts people to your business. That takes much longer than servicing a need, but both are quite valid, and those are two different paths that most designers do take, and that's what we need to identify very early on, because a lot of designers get frustrated saying, oh, I'm not selling, or nobody wants my product, and I can't make a business out of this, but they haven't found which one of those two things they need to go in, which path of those two paths they need to choose. So that's very, very, very important. And after actually creating a product that people want, you need to price it properly. It's the most unsexy conversation ever, but clothing needs to be priced appropriately, not just to fit into your market, but to also make the business viable. A lot of designers are very popular, but they haven't priced their products correctly. So what they end up doing, they end up being in a cycle of basically just making clothes, making very little profit, and having to overwork to get underpaid. So you need to find a good balance for your time, your creativity, but also your target market, and also be cognizant of the market in which you operate. And it's not an easy conversation. I think most designers don't understand that. Yes, you're a designer, but you're also a design entrepreneur, and you're running a design enterprise. So all the big questions you are going through are the same big questions that all the blue chip companies all over the world have got issues with. They have to discuss how much is washing soap in Uganda versus the same washing soap in Ghana, because those things matter, and there aren't any simple answers. Each and every business is still tackling things like pricing, things like product positioning. So I think most designers are quite hard on themselves, but at the same time, it's a hard path you've chosen, but there is a high reward for what we do. We're unlike any other business. You can make something and sell it for as much as a TV costs, and then a person comes and buys another thing after 2 weeks. Whereas people that make TVs, people buy TVs every 5 years. They have a very different problem, So it's only about clothing, food, are those kind of industries that you can really, they're high risk, but also very, very high reward. And they're very competitive for that very, very reason. So you've chosen a hard path, but you've chosen a path that's got, if you've got all the parts of it correct, you can really make a good living out of it. People do love clothes. It's an industry that, even through financial hardships, There's always a need for it. It's always the first industry to also recover after any type of crisis. So it's a really good business to be in. There's very low barriers of entry. Like, we can train somebody who didn't know how to sew. In 6-7 months, they can be proficient enough to give you good product. So that's why you will see even sometimes in emerging markets, let's say a country has been war-torn or whatever, the first people that kind of move into the country business-wise will be like the shoe manufacturers, the clothing manufacturers, because it's pretty simple to train people to be able to do this job. And that's why I'm glad a lot of African designers are actually investing in creating their own businesses at home, because the domestic market is also very, very, very important. A lot of European and American brands are coming into Africa. Let's not get tricked into thinking, oh, I want to export, I want to export. The growth is here. The growth is on the continent. That's why everyone else is coming here. Their own markets are very saturated, they're very stagnant, they're very competitive. So I think we need to focus at home. And that's what I've decided to do. In the last year and a half, I've had the Africa Rise store almost turning 1 on the 25th of October. And the Africa Rise store has been about bringing African designed products to mainstream shopping centers. We opened in Center City on the 25th of October last year. And we have 24 brands, from David Lally to Miri Colleen from Rwanda, Gallagher from Kenya, Road Content Ashes from Tanzania. So it's basically all the best of African design, but in a convenient location. Because when it comes to fashion, the consumer has really matured that they don't automatically assume because it's African is inferior. They just want a beautiful product. They want it well priced, but they want it to be convenient. Our major issue as design enterprises is that we're not going into ready-to-wear. We are still focused on the service industry, which is dressmaking and tailoring, and those have a very, very low ceiling, because you're not selling a product that can be mass manufactured, no matter what mass means to you. But even just 5 products, 5 of a dress is mass, or 5,000, or 50,000. But once you're selling your time, like you make a custom-made dress, you need to charge so much more because you're now selling a service. And there's only so many hours in a day, and you can't really maximize your talent in that way. And there is a space for private clients always, because they're good for cash flow, they're good for product research, because they allow you to experiment, and you take those findings and you put them into your ready-to-wear. But as designers, we need to focus a lot more on ready-to-wear, even if we produce in a very careful way, where we make these 3 or 4 sizes of each style, and we respond to demand. But we need to be on the product manufacturing side, we need to be on the IP side, we need to be on the ready-to-wear side. That's how we can monetize what we do. We cannot monetize it as a service. So I implore designers to focus on creating a ready-to-wear signature, finding a way they fit into their market domestically, even on the continent, finding a way a product can be best appreciated, because we can't control where we're born. You can have a beautiful talent, but if we're born in a place that it doesn't need a specific type of product, you need to research where you can retail that product. And that's where Africa Rise comes in, because I was saying to a lot of designers that, listen, you could be working from the Eastern Cape here in South Africa, where there might not be a big market for, let's say, silk beach dresses, but there is the big market for it in Johannesburg. You can work from home, have beautiful low overhead, work from even your parents' garage, and you just post the thing up to Johannesburg, where they sell in a proper store that's beautifully appointed, and where the product can be priced for its own merit. Because another thing that designers often do, which is also a big mistake, is introducing customers to where they work. Especially when you're starting out and perhaps you're working from a small little room from a garage or whatever. Once the customer has got that direct contact with you, they feel they can bargain you down, they kind of see your circumstances, they're like, oh, okay, and they just try and get the price as low as possible. And the worst part about that, they tell somebody else, and that person comes, it feels like they're supporting your business, but if they're not paying the price that you want them to pay for your product, they're actually kind of getting you caught up in this cycle of you manufacturing, but you're not making enough money. So as a designer, as soon as possible, you need to find a place that is far away from where you manufacture to sell your product, where your product can stand its own. So you need to focus on product design, product quality, and great fabrication and things that you are in control of. I always try to explain to people that I started this business on my own. I can sew extremely well, extremely well. And I would sew from a commune. I used to live in a commune in West Dean. There were 14 of us in a 3-bedroom commune. It was a hellhole. But I sewed the thing so beautifully. And there was a store in Rosebank, Johannesburg, that sold different brands from Marni to Andy Mister. It was a beautiful boutique called Labelle. And they liked my product, which I was making from my overcrowded commune. And I put it in that store and I priced it according to what the product stood for, not where I was making it from or how I felt about myself, but how the product, you look at your product and you say, this is 8,000 rand dress. This is a $200 US t-shirt. It just needs to be within the right context for it to sell. And that's how I started my business, basically from selling clothes. And most customers don't need you to be well known or have a profile. Those things can all come later. But if you build the actual business of selling clothes first, no one can kick you out of this industry. As long as you're making money and you're making a living from what you're doing, nobody can move you out of this industry. It's a product-based industry, and it's just very, very important for designers to focus on beautifully made product. That's it. And all the techniques for sewing and things like that, all that information is available in books. Free books are on the internet. There's YouTube tutorials on how to sew properly. We need to find how we can upskill ourselves in ways that don't depend on other people, because I think also we've been lied to a lot in terms of all of us wanting to be mentored and wanting to have direct access to people that we feel are successful. And that stifles us, and we create a bottleneck where we feel like, oh, I didn't get an internship at Clever Studio, so there's no hope for me, or I didn't get to go to that fancy school, so there's no hope for me. I learned 90% of what I know from books, from YouTube videos, from readings, from practicing, because we're in a trade. This industry is a trade. It's like plumbing, it's like being an electrician or a painter or a roofer. It's a skill, and a skill you need to practice. Whether it's by apprenticeship, no fancy school will give you the skill. Yes, they might give it a different vantage point, but everything that you need in terms of starting a business, of creating beautiful product, of learning how things should be done properly, because this is also a very standardized industry. I know a lot of creatives like to be self-taught, and you can be self-taught if you're being taught from the right materials. There's great books out there, there's great YouTube tutorials. It's just amazing how much manufacturing content is out there, amazing blogs as well that let you know how to set in a sleeve, how to sew a pant properly, how to tailor a coat properly, without having to step into a fancy school or to apprentice with all the right designers, because those are finite, and we need to be scaling up this business as fast as possible. I want to see if Serge has got any questions for me from you guys. But in terms of the business of fashion, I always say focus on product. Create the distance between you and the customer, especially at the beginning of your business, so that you can price your business properly. Most designers feel like, oh, they'll price very low to attract people, but then you get trapped there because every recommendation tells the other next person, oh, only paid $15 for that. So you think the next customer is going to pay $35? No, they also want to pay the same $15. But you're now caught making the same low price thing forever and ever and ever. Whereas once you create space between you and the customer, and the product really is worth $200 US, that's what it's worth. And you can have your business from then onwards, because you can never price down and then eventually raise up your prices. It doesn't work. It works in theory. People think that I'll start low and attract people, and after I've attracted the customer base, I'll steadily raise my prices to where they should be. But it just doesn't happen that way. It really doesn't. If you start off with McDonald's pricing, you cannot suddenly change and be a Michelin starred restaurant price. Everyone wants McDonald's prices from a McDonald's. That's just how it is. That's just, you need to start correct with this business. You cannot, there's not a lot of second chances or third chances to make first impressions. Price it right, price it as high as you need, and if you need a simple guide, I always say the cost price multiplied by 5, that is your retail price. And most people find it extremely shocking, but I said it's very important because a lot of design entrepreneurs don't know how to calculate all of the non-visible overheads. Yes, they can see the fabric, they can see, the trims and whatnot, but they don't see the time that they spent because they feel like, well, it's my time is worthless. They don't see the time for them to go and buy fabric, come back. They don't see the time when they're consulting with customers. They don't see their design time when they're designing the garment. They don't see the time where they went to school, what pages. They never calculate that. So you need to sometimes create a formula that will make sure that even when you think it's too high price, it's the cost multiplied by 5, that is your retail price. That is very, very important, and then you can start making a business from there onwards. Because even with clothes, it's so tricky that it's a size-based business, where even if you have the most beautiful design, but if you make it in 5 sizes, some of those will never sell, because even if it's a highly in-demand garment, if the person's size does not fit the garment, they can't take it, they physically cannot take it. So you either have to alter it or you have to make another one. So you always have losses in terms of stock. You will always have losses. So your retail price must make up for those losses. So if you're making a shirt and you make them in 5 sizes, the retail price of selling one shirt should cover other 4 shirts if they do not sell. Because you are stuck with those 4 shirts. Either they have to sell, or you have to mark them down, or you have to take them back and store them somewhere, which is a cost. There's things that you don't understand. You think taking back those things and putting them in your cupboard at home costs you nothing, but you have to transport them, you have to take them back, you have to put them somewhere. So there's cost implications to everything, and your retail price needs to cover not only your living costs, but your manufacturing costs, your marketing costs. Even if marketing is putting up pictures on social media, that is still marketing, and your business needs to feed every single one of those elements. What else can be said about this business? Except it's loads of fun, but at the same time, you need to be so in touch with the needs of people. A lot of creative entrepreneurs make their creativity the customer's problem. Your creativity should be the solution to people's problems. When people see your garment, your accessory, it should be like, oh, I love that, I must incorporate that into what I love. And you need to know your market really, really well. You need to listen to people, you need to observe. We're in a data-based business where, yes, the numbers can say one thing, but you also need to know your society. I make women's wear in South Africa, and that's my main business, and I know South African women in and out. You need to understand that the South African shopper is always looking for a reason not to buy something. And that's how I design. I design for the reluctant shopper. It's very different from a US kind of design base where people just want to buy. There's a buying culture. Here you almost need to convince somebody of why this thing is necessary, what is the value proposition of this thing, where else can they wear this thing. And I design with that in mind, where the garment has got a long shelf life. It doesn't look trendy. And that's what speaks to cycling customers, especially for the last 10, 15 years. But we're constantly interrogating that because our market changes as well, and fashion is constantly changing, but it's so amazing how sometimes designers aren't willing to change according to the times. And the times can be changed by anything. It can be changed by the economy, it can be changed by the corona pandemic. And a simple example of how we have changed in my business is that we used to create about new collections every about 3 weeks. Now every week we do 4 new styles that we put into the store, Because customers now, since the virus and everything, they want to see constant newness. And because I control my own studio, it's easy for us to create constant newness if we create very small numbers of what we create. So very limited numbers, but every week we're creating something new to excite the customer and make them purchase. but at the same time make sure that we don't over-invest in a style. We're not making 50 or something anymore. Now we're making 5, but we make it, we sell it, we move on. And it vibes so well with the times right now, because also our customers are getting so much younger, which is another thing that a lot of design entrepreneurs don't keep in mind. Is customers who about 5-6 years ago, they came to my studio, let's say with their mom, to make a matric dance dress, which is, and you're thinking, okay, but in a matter of 5 years, the same girl that came to make a matric dance dress with her mom is working at a bank, and she's well on her way to being middle management. Now she is my chief customer, and I need to make sure that my business is still appealing to her and also retaining the same mom who came to bring her 5 years ago. So as businesses, we need to keep on having that conversation with our customer, creating product that not only retains customers, but also looks forward and kind of recruits new customers. And it's a lot of hard work. It's not about just throwing pretty dresses and pretty suits and fusing to those fabrics, but it's being immersed in the world, being responsive to what you see out there in the world, also being able to read the numbers and also being able to interpret information, which is what also having a retail space like Africa Rights and our own stores does. Is that a simple example? When I was stocked in one of the bigger boutiques here in this country and abroad, I didn't have access to anything except the Excel spreadsheets that they send us every month about what's sold. So there's a dress style I did, I sent there, and it was 10 dresses, and we sold all of them. Of course, the spreadsheet is telling me that I need to make more of these dresses, right? Because we've sold out. But I think something is not right. So I took a flight to one of the stores. This is when we could take flights. And I went to go speak to the salespeople on the floor. And they were like, oh my God, Thula, please do not ever make that dress again. Because we had to fit over 380 people into that dress for us to finally just get rid of those 10. So if anything, I was like, wow, okay, the numbers told me one thing, but the sales staff interpreted the actual information with the reality. And that's what we need, and that's what prompted me to have my own retail stores, because then I could have the real data. Customers give away so much information with their little complaints, with their little suggestions. Some people will come and say, oh, I love this skirt. I wish you guys just had a simple white shirts. That's information that nobody can give you. And you're like, wow, thank you. And you invest in making these simple white shirts, and they start to move because the customer is giving you information all the time. But you need to be so plugged in, and that doesn't mean just do everything that people say you must do. But you need to be so tuned in because customers they live in your brand. You are just the creator. These people are the ones that are saying, I'm a Thula Sindi woman. This is how I dress. They interpret what your creativity is. They create it and they go onto the real world and wear this product. So when they're feeling that, I just wish you just had this, I wish you had that. You need to interrogate your business and be like, hey, maybe it's time for us to do something like that. Like I never did casual wear until about 4 years ago, because when I started, there was such a big need in this country for just work wear. Like there was just no proper work clothes for women. There were no proper kind of casual cocktail clothes. There was nothing like that. Everything was either hyper special occasion or really kind of not great quality work stuff. And I was like, this is a huge gap. This is where I go in. This is where I can take my creativity and make beautiful clothes for women that are timeless, ideal for work, that go easily from day to evening. And that's where what I've done since. I mean, it has been very successful. But more and more, my customers will be like, Thula, what do we wear on the weekends? What do we wear on the weekends? And part of it was like, that's not my problem. But I'd be like, when your people keep on saying, but we need something, some lounge wear for the weekend, we need some t-shirts, we need this. We don't want to go buy them somewhere else. You understand us, you understand now the quality that we like. Can you get to it, dude? And that's when I started to do my casual stuff. And that's now the half of my business is loungewear. And luckily, that's what's also kept us afloat now with the corona and everything, with people being in their homes and dressing more casually. I I've got an entire wing of my business that has now become about 80% of what I do, because it's something that I started 4 years ago, literally from pressure from my customers. And that's for me what's really important about this business, is being focused, being connected to what people want, always learning, always moving forward, also see what other people are doing, because it's a very isolated business. And that's another reason why I decided to open Africa Rise, that a lot of designers and design enterprises, they work in isolation, and unfortunately we don't have fashion councils or anything like that, that's ever worked in this country. So, but we need to be in a space where I can see what other creators are doing, a place where we can share ideas, share suppliers, share the true cost of things. When somebody tells you that, oh no, that's not supposed to cost that much, why are they charging you that? Or, oh no, you can get this here, you can get this there. Just to stop that isolation, and also to see your product in context. You need to see what a David Study does, you need to see what a Thula Sindi does, you need to see what Daniel Bakar does, you need to see their finishes, their quality, and what's possible on this continent. Because sometimes we're convinced that our best is the best that can be done, until you see somebody else's, and you're like, oh, okay, I need to look into what I'm doing and how I can do it better. And once we're sharing a retail space, and we're all in this one WhatsApp group, we're all chatting all the time, interrogating our sales, speaking about how we can create growth, even in these difficult times. And it's really important to be part of the conversation, especially as young designers, because there's different designers who are in different phases of their careers, and they've got so much knowledge about the industry, they've got an in-depth history of what's possible. And even now that we're going through a crisis, we've got people who worked right through 2008, so they can tell you that, this is not as bad as that, And as a young designer, you need to hear that from people who survived. That no, this was worse in 2008. You only started your business now in 2015. You should have been here in 2008. When there was no money, everything was just dead. This is a small break, So that's really kind of been very, very important. But in this industry as well of fashion, there's always room for growth, and either you can create an entire brand, or sometimes you can just create a really beautiful product and you find different places to sell that one product, but that's where you need to find where your journey is, and nobody can tell that to you, only your own luck, your own opportunities, whatever can come your way will determine how your business grows. And you have to try. This is the kind of business where you have to try. And you need to understand that you're competing with everyone from every walk of life. You're competing with whoever sells clothes in a shopping center, from Burberry to Mr. Price. You are competing with them for the customer's money, because the customer is not as brand loyal as they used to be. People just like beautiful things. So whether it's coming from a very high-end brand or low-end brand, people are now mixing and matching. It's changed so much. When I started the business, this is 2007, 2008, people would wear like designers like head to toe, and boutiques were still such a big deal. Now, people just wear what they like, and they'll wear a belt from Gucci with my dress, with shoes from Mr. Price. And you're like, how do you even go to all of these stores, But the customer is really, very open. It's really, really open. So when you're creating a product, you need to take so many things into consideration. That's why it is a difficult business, but when you get the formula right, and when you are consistent with your quality, and you're consistent with your vision, get a set number of people that will always try to get your product first. Doesn't mean they'll always buy it, but they'll always come and check, oh, what does this guy have? And if you do have something nice, their money will stay with you. But if you don't have anything that's going to catch their eye, they move on to someone else. But as long as they kind of keep circling back, that's what a business really is that circling back of customers to you and saying, okay, we like this stuff, we want more of it, we're interested in what this brand does, and they come over and over and over and over, and before you know it, you've got a business. But what you have to do on your side is focus a lot more on the ready-to-wear proposition and product design and additive that you can manufacture in mass And mass doesn't mean thousands of units, by the way. Even if it means 5 units of something, it still beats making one pound for one person that you have to measure and ask them this and this and that, and run to the fabric store, come back, fit them. That is a very premium service, and only a few people that are involved, let's say in bridal wear or in men's tailoring, that it can be lucrative in. But dressmaking is not a lucrative business at all. Focus a lot more on fashion and manufacturing, unless you want to go into something high-end, like high-end men's tailoring or high-end bridal. There's nothing else in between. That is my only advice. And I know most people are like, no, you can start, just doing customers, but you can't. It's a dead end. The ceiling is too low. You'll be trapped. You'll be constantly trapped making little dresses for aunts and uncles, and it won't take you anywhere. So focus on having a design signature. Focus on creating something with a brand identity, something that can sell away from you, something that you can put in a store that's even in another town, another country, and you still have some type of signature that makes people want to come back and get more product. And that's all that this business is about, nothing more.
Well, thank you very much, Thula Sindi.
Thank you for your time. If you've got any questions, you can send them through to me, but I think that's my time with you today. I hope it's been useful. Thank you for the invitation from Fashion Without Borders, and hopefully I'll be back in Bots soon as well. I miss you guys. And hopefully we'll be seeing a lot more designers from Botswana in Africa Rise. We have a store in Joburg City as well. We have a store in Sandton City, and we're always trying to expand as well. And we only have one designer from Botswana, and last time I was there, I saw a lot of great talent. So I'm hoping that we'll be joined by a lot more.
Thula, thank you so much for your contribution, for our most earth-shaking or earth-moving masterclass today. Thanks to the good guys at Fashion Without Borders. Thank you so much for your time in taking us through the various layers of the business of fashion. Rest assured, your in-person audience on site here at Monabo Piazza was enthralled and hanging on to your each and every word. So I do invite you to keep a close eye from your end of Africa in the developments that you have stimulated with your advice today. A round of applause once again for the priceless advice from Thula Sindi. I suppose we're saying goodbye to you at this moment. Thank you for your precious time, and we look forward to sharing summaries of your presentation on social media. See you when you come back home.